The words come out stiff and rehearsed like I'm reading from a script. She nods along and asks a few questions about my classes and my friends. I give vague answers that don't really mean anything. Then she asks if there's something specific that's been bothering me lately, and suddenly my throat gets tight. I try to keep talking about homework and tests, but my voice cracks. Before I can stop myself, I'm crying and the whole story comes tumbling out about Audrey and Kurt and Joey. I grab tissues from the box on her desk and wipe my face while explaining how I was supposed to babysit Joey so Audrey could get close to Kurt. But then I started having feelings too. The words keep coming faster and I tell her about movie nights and Kurt asking me to dinner and Audrey crying on the phone. Marcella doesn't interrupt at all, just sits there listening with her hands folded on the desk. When I finally run out of words, she waits a few seconds before speaking. She asks me what I actually want versus what I think I should want. The question catches me completely off guard because nobody else has asked me that. Everyone just assumes I should pick Audrey's feelings over mine because she's my best friend. I wipe my eyes again and admit I have feelings for Kurt that feel real and important. But I'm terrified of hurting Audrey, who's been there for me through everything. And I'm worried about Joey getting caught in the middle of adult drama when he already lost his parents. Marcella nods slowly and asks if I think my feelings for Kurt would just disappear if I ignore them. I shake my head because I know they won't. She points out that feelings don't work that way, and pretending they don't exist usually makes things worse. Marcella leans forward slightly and says, I need to have an honest conversation with Audrey before anything else happens. She explains that the longer I avoid it, the worse the betrayal will feel when Audrey inevitably finds out. And she will find out eventually because these things always come to light. I nod because I know she's right, even though the thought of that conversation makes me want to throw up. Marcella also points out that I can't control Audrey's feelings or her reaction. The only thing I can control is my own honesty and integrity. She asks if I want to be the kind of person who lies to their best friend, or the kind who tells hard truths even when it's scary. I tell her I want to be honest, but I don't know how to start that conversation. She suggests I just ask Audrey to meet up and tell her directly that I've developed feelings for Kurt. No long explanation or justification, just the simple truth, and then let Audrey respond however she needs to. I leave her office 20 minutes later feeling slightly less like I'm drowning. The panic is still there, but now there's also a clear path forward instead of just spinning in circles. I walk to my car in the parking lot and sit in the driver's seat for a few minutes. My phone sits in my lap and I stare at it knowing what I need to do. I open my text with Audrey and type out a message asking if she wants to hang out this weekend. My finger hovers over the send button for a solid minute. Then I close my eyes and hit send before I can change my mind. The message shows as delivered, and I put my phone in the cup holder and drive home. My hands grip the steering wheel too tight the whole way. That evening, I'm trying to do homework in my room when my phone buzzes. I grab it expecting Audrey's response, but it's Joey instead. His text says Jackson's band is playing a small show Friday night and asks if I want to come. He mentions Kurt will be there too with 3 exclamation points. My stomach twists because I know I should say no. I should stay away until I figure things out with Audrey. But I also don't want to disappear from Joey's life when he's already dealing with enough. I type back that I'll be there and immediately feel guilty about it. My phone buzzes again with Joey's response full of happy emojis. Then Audrey texts back saying this weekend works for her and asks what I want to do. I tell her maybe just coffee and talking. She sends back a thumbs up. I put my phone face down on my desk and try to focus on my math homework, but the numbers blur together. Friday arrives way too fast. I spend the whole day at the school feeling jumpy and distracted. After my last class, I drive home and change clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a plain shirt. The venue is this small place downtown that usually has local bands on weekends. I park a block away and walk over, hearing music already coming from inside. The door guy checks my ID and waves me through. The space is dark and crowded with people standing around talking over the opening band. I scan the room looking for Joey and spot him near the stage. He sees me at the same time and his whole face lights up. He pushes through the crowd and grabs my hand, dragging me toward the stage area. Kurt is over by the side with his guitar, talking to Jackson and the other band members. He looks up and sees us and waves. My chest does this warm thing when he smiles at me. Then the guilt crashes in right after because Audrey should be here instead of me. The opening band finishes and Jackson's band takes the stage. They start setting up their equipment and doing sound checks. Joey bounces on his feet next to me, clearly excited to see his brother perform. The first song starts and I'm surprised by how good they actually are. Jackson has a strong voice and the guitar parts are complex. Kurt plays with complete focus, his fingers moving across the strings without hesitation. The crowd around us starts moving to the music. Joey leans against my side during one of the slower songs. I put my arm around his shoulders without thinking about it. In this moment, I realize how much I've come to care about this kid that has nothing to do with his brother. Joey is funny and sweet, and he deserves people who stick around for him. Not because of Kurt, but because of who Joey is. The set ends and the crowd claps and cheers. Kurt and Jackson pack up their equipment while Joey and I wait near the stage. Jackson spots us and walks over with a huge grin. He says something about the show going well, and then looks at me with this knowing expression. He mentions that Kurt talks about me all the time, then gives me a look that makes my face heat up. Before I can respond, Joey interrupts asking if we can all get pizza because he's starving. Kurt appears behind Jackson and agrees immediately. He catches my eye and smiles in a way that makes my stomach flip. Jackson says he needs to help pack up the van, but we should go ahead. We all head toward the exit together, and I try not to think about how this feels like a date, even though Joey is here as a buffer. The pizza place is busy and loud with people talking over each other. We grab a table in the back corner and order 2 large pizzas. Joey immediately launches into stories about his week at the school and some new game he's playing. He talks with his hands, gesturing wildly as he describes beating a hard level. Kurt and I sit across from each other and our eyes keep meeting over Joey's head. Every glance feels heavy with things we're not saying. Jackson watches us with barely hidden amusement, like he's watching a show. After about 20 minutes, he suddenly announces he needs to head out, making up some excuse about an early morning. He leaves money for his share of the pizza and walks out. Now it's just the 3 of us at the table. Joey doesn't seem to notice the shift, but I definitely do. Kurt's foot accidentally bumps mine under the table and neither of us moves away. The pizza gets cold while Joey talks about some gaming tournament at the school, and Kurt keeps glancing at me with this soft look that makes my chest feel tight. Eventually Joey yawns, and Kurt checks his phone saying they should head home because it's getting late. We walk out to Kurt's car, and Joey climbs in the back seat, still talking about his day. The drive to Joey's place takes about 15 minutes, and I sit in the passenger seat watching streetlights pass by the window. Kurt drops Joey off at their apartment, and Joey waves goodbye to me before running inside. Then it's just the two of us, and Kurt pulls back onto the road heading toward my house. The silence feels heavy and different from earlier. I stare at my hands in my lap, and Kurt clears his throat. He tells me he got my text about needing time, and he wants me to know there's no pressure on anything. His voice sounds careful, like he's trying not to push. I look over at him and almost say everything right then about Audrey and the guilt and how confused I feel. But the words stick in my throat, and I just thank him for being so understanding about the whole thing. He reaches over and squeezes my hand for a second before putting his hand back on the wheel. When we pull up to my house, I unbuckle my seatbelt and tell him goodnight. He says goodnight back and waits until I'm inside before driving away. I go straight to my room and flop onto my bed staring at the ceiling. My phone sits on my nightstand and I grab it, opening a new text to Audrey. I start typing out this long message about how I've developed feelings for Kurt, and I'm so sorry, and I never meant for any of this to happen. The words look pathetic on the screen, and I keep deleting parts and rewriting them, trying to make it sound less awful. After 20 minutes, I have this whole paragraph explaining everything, but my finger hovers over the send button, and I can't do it. I remember what Marcella said about being honest in person, and how text messages can make things worse. I delete the entire draft and throw my phone across my bed. Tomorrow I'll talk to Audrey face-to-face at the coffee shop like a real friend should. I set an alarm for early Saturday morning, and try to sleep, but mostly just stare at the dark ceiling thinking about how badly this could go. Saturday morning my alarm goes off and my stomach immediately twists into knots. I get up and shower, then stand in front of my closet for way too long trying to pick an outfit. Everything feels wrong, like I'm dressing for some terrible event. I finally settle on jeans and a regular shirt because trying too hard would be weird. I practice in the mirror saying different versions of the confession. I try starting with an apology, then try starting with the actual feelings part, but everything sounds horrible. Each version makes me sound like the worst friend in the world who betrayed her best friend over some guy. I check my phone and see it's almost time to meet Audrey, so I grab my keys and drive to our usual coffee shop downtown. My hands shake a little on the steering wheel, and I have to take deep breaths at red lights. When I park outside the coffee shop, I sit in my car for a few extra minutes trying to calm down. Through the window, I can see our normal table in the corner is empty. I force myself to get out and walk inside, ordering my usual drink even though I feel too sick to actually drink it. I sit down at our table and wait, checking my phone every 30 seconds. Audrey walks in about 5 minutes later, and she actually looks better than she did earlier this week. Her eyes aren't red and puffy anymore, and she's wearing makeup and a cute outfit. She orders her drink, then comes over and sits across from me with this bright smile. Before I can say anything, she launches into this whole speech about how she's been doing a lot of thinking and she's decided to move on from Kurt and focus on herself for a while. She talks about how she realized she was building up this fantasy in her head, and it wasn't healthy. My rehearsed confession completely dies in my throat as I listen to her talk about her new perspective on everything. She seems so much better and more at peace, and I realize telling her now might actually be even harder than if she was still upset. She keeps talking about self-improvement and joining some new club at the school, and I just nod along, feeling worse with every word. I force myself to interrupt her mid-sentence, and my voice comes out shaky. I tell her I need to say something important, and her expression immediately shifts from happy to concerned. She asks what's wrong and leans forward like she's ready to help with whatever problem I have. The words tumble out clumsy and rushed, and I admit I've developed feelings for Kurt, and I'm so sorry, and I never meant for any of this to happen. Her face freezes, and I watch her process what I just said. She goes through several emotions really fast, and I can see confusion, then hurt, then something like betrayal, before her expression settles into this cold, blank look. She asks in a voice that's too calm and controlled how long I've felt this way. I'm honest and tell her it's been building over the past few weeks while I've been spending time with Joey. Somehow saying Joey's name makes it worse, like I was sneaking around with her crush while pretending to babysit. Her jaw tightens and she looks away from me toward the window. She asks if Kurt feels the same way about me, and I tell her yes, he asked me to dinner, but I haven't given him an answer because our friendship matters more. That doesn't seem to help at all. She stands up suddenly and her chair scrapes loud against the floor. She says she needs time to think about this and grabs her coffee cup. I start to say something else, but she's already walking toward the door. She leaves the coffee shop without looking back, and I watch her through the window as she gets in her car and drives away. I sit alone at the table with my untouched coffee getting cold in front of me. The barista behind the counter glances over at me, probably wondering why I look like I'm about to cry. I feel like I just destroyed the most important friendship I have. But there's also this weird sense of relief that the secret is finally out in the open. At least now everything is honest, even if it's terrible. I stay at the coffee shop for another hour just sitting there because I don't want to go home yet. My phone stays silent the whole time, and I don't text Audrey because she asked for space. Eventually I drive home and spend the rest of Saturday in my room doing homework and trying not to check my phone every 5 minutes. My parents ask if I'm okay at dinner, and I tell them I'm fine, just tired. Sunday drags by even slower, and I deep clean my room just to have something to do with my hands. I keep picking up my phone to text Audrey, then putting it back down. Around 6 in the evening on Sunday, my phone finally buzzes with a text from her. My heart jumps, and I open it immediately. She asks me not to go on that dinner with Kurt yet, and says she needs more time to process everything, and she doesn't want to see me with him right now. I respond right away saying of course I'll wait, and her friendship matters way more to me than any potential relationship. She sends back a thumbs up emoji and nothing else. I put my phone down, feeling relieved she responded, but also sad that our friendship feels so damaged. Monday morning I wake up to a text from Kurt asking if I've thought more about dinner, and saying he'd really like to take me out this week. I stare at the message for a long time trying to figure out how to explain. I type back telling him about my conversation with Audrey on Saturday, and how she asked me to wait before going on any dates with him. I explain that I need to respect her feelings right now because she's my best friend. Kurt responds pretty quickly saying he respects that decision, and he's not going anywhere so we can take whatever time I need. But even through the text I can sense the disappointment, and it makes my chest ache. I thank him for understanding and tell him I'll let him know when things settle down. He sends back a simple okay with a sad face emoji. I get ready for school feeling exhausted even though the day hasn't started yet. Everything feels complicated and messy, and I don't know how long Audrey will need, or if Kurt will actually wait, or if Joey will be mad at me for making everything weird between his brother and my friend. At the school I keep my head down and try to focus on classes, but my mind keeps wandering to Kurt's unanswered text and Joey's excited messages that I still haven't opened. During lunch I spot Audrey sitting with our usual group and she waves me over with a small smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. I slide into my seat and she asks about the history homework in a polite voice that feels wrong coming from my best friend who normally complains about assignments. Our other friends exchange quick glances like they know something happened, but nobody asks directly. Maya mentions seeing Kurt at the music store yesterday, and Audrey's smile gets tighter, but she just nods and changes the subject to weekend plans. I pick at my sandwich and mostly stay quiet while the conversation flows around me. After lunch, I find myself walking toward the counseling office without really planning to, and the secretary tells me Marcella has an opening. I sit in the small office with its motivational posters, and she asks how things went with Audrey. I explain the coffee shop conversation, and how Audrey asked me to wait before dating Kurt, and Marcella nods slowly. She reminds me that being honest was the right choice even when it's hard, and that I can't control how long Audrey needs to process everything. I leave feeling slightly better, but still heavy with the weight of everything unresolved. The next few days crawl by with Audrey staying civil but distant, and I notice some of our mutual friends acting slightly weird around me like they've heard a version of events. I don't ask what Audrey told them because I'm too tired to defend myself or explain the messy situation. Kurt and I text occasionally about homework or random stuff, but we both avoid talking about anything serious. I go to game night at their apartment later that week, and Joey immediately notices something's off. He pauses his game and looks at me with those two smart eyes.